Have you ever felt invisible? Not because you disappeared, but because no one reminded you that you still mattered. There's a silent ache spreading through so many souls today. People aren't just tired, they're discouraged. Not because they lack talent, but because life, little by little, convinced them they weren't enough. But what if I told you that your greatest influence isn't in what you say or even what you know, but in what you help others remember about themselves? This is not a video about motivation. It's about restoration. And if you've ever longed to make a real difference in someone's life, not by fixing them, but by helping them see themselves again, then stay with me. Because the influence you carry might just be sacred.
There's a skill so rare, so quietly powerful, that most people overlook it entirely. Yet I've seen it change lives more than eloquence ever could. It's not persuasion, it's not charm, it's not even wisdom. It's the ability to make someone feel capable again. And in all my years of teaching, speaking, and listening, I've come to believe this: the most underrated form of influence is helping someone believe in themselves when they've forgotten how. We live in a world that's quick to critique, quick to advise, quick to point out what needs improvement. But very few pause to look someone in the eye and say, "I still believe in you." You see, encouragement isn't about noise. It's not about cheering from the sidelines. It's not about hyping someone up with cliches. It's about presence. It's about becoming a mirror, a sacred one, that reflects back the truth someone stopped seeing. And let me tell you something you may have forgotten. You have that power. You don't need to be a therapist. You don't need to be a coach. You don't need to be an expert in anything except love. Because encouragement is love in action. And it doesn't require perfect timing or eloquent words. It requires honesty. It requires stillness. It requires being willing to see light in someone before they do. I remember once sitting across from a man who had lost everything: his job, his confidence, his voice. He said, "I feel invisible, like I'm not worth much anymore." I didn't try to fix him. I didn't give him a 5-step plan. I just said, "Your voice still matters, even now, especially now." And he cried, not because I had said something profound, but because I had reminded him of something he feared was gone: his value. That is what encouragement does. It brings people back to themselves. It says, "I see strength in you, even if you can't see it yet." And slowly, gently, something starts to rise. The chin lifts, the breath deepens, the eyes soften, and the journey back to self-worth begins. Maybe no one ever told you this, but you don't need to have the answers to change someone's life. You just need to become a safe enough presence for their courage to come home. We speak so often of greatness, of ambition, of success, and yet we forget the one moment that births them all, when a discouraged heart decides to try again. That's where influence truly begins, not in getting people to do more, but in helping them believe they can. I've seen people with all the knowledge in the world, and yet they freeze, not because they're unqualified, but because somewhere along the way, life told them they weren't enough. It told them their voice was too small, their dreams too unrealistic, their efforts too late. And so they shrank, not because they lacked potential, but because they lacked encouragement. You see, people don't give up because they're weak. They give up because they're weary. And sometimes the most life-changing thing you can say to someone is not, "You should try harder," but it's, "You've carried so much already, and I'm proud of how you're still standing." That's encouragement. It's not loud. It's not flashy. It's sacred. It's a spiritual act, really, to remind someone of their worth when the world has eroded it. Think about it. What made you keep going when you were at your lowest? Was it a list of goals? Or was it the quiet presence of someone who looked at you and said, "You're stronger than this moment, and I'll be here until you remember"? Encouragement is not a technique. It's a lifestyle. It's the way you enter a room. It's the way you listen without interrupting. It's the way you celebrate small wins no one else notices. It's the way you say, "I see your effort," even when the result wasn't perfect. Because here's the truth. People don't rise when they feel watched. They rise when they feel safe. Safe to try. Safe to fail. Safe to be seen in their becoming. And you, yes, you can offer that safety, not by fixing people, but by being the kind of soul whose presence reminds others, "You're allowed to start again, you're allowed to believe again, and you don't have to do it alone." Some of the most powerful people I've met never made headlines. They weren't celebrated on stages, they didn't have titles or degrees, but they had this rare ability to look into someone's eyes and awaken what had been sleeping. That, my friend, is what true encouragement does. It doesn't inflate the ego, it restores the soul. It doesn't hype, it heals. And in a world full of pressure, performance, and perfectionism, healing is the greatest form of influence you can offer. You want to lead someone? Show them who they are before you show them what they need to do. That changes everything. Because when a person feels seen as capable, they stop needing permission to act. They stop asking for approval. They stop apologizing for existing. They begin. They take the next step not because they were pushed, but because they remembered, "I can." That's the moment we live for. Not when people follow orders, but when they reclaim their dignity. When they realize that their past doesn't define them, that their failures don't disqualify them, that their struggle is not their identity, it's just a chapter. And you, yes, you can be the one who hands them the pen again. I want you to think about someone right now. Someone who's discouraged. Someone who's doubting themselves. Someone who's shrinking under the weight of silence. Ask yourself, what would happen if I reminded them who they are? Not who they were told to be, not who they used to be, but who they still are, deep down, under the fear, under the fatigue, under the failure. What if you told them, "You're still in there, and I see you"? Because here's what I've learned. People don't need more motivation. They need restoration. They need to be handed back their own name. They need to be reminded that courage didn't leave. It just needed a reason to return. And sometimes you are that reason. So let this be the kind of influence you carry, not the kind that commands attention, but the kind that returns people to themselves. Because the deepest change never comes from being impressed. It comes from being believed in. And maybe that's your calling, not to be the loudest voice in the room, but the softest echo in someone's soul, saying, "You can still rise." I want to speak to the encourager in you now, the quiet warrior, the one who sees what others miss. You may never get applause for your words. You may never see the full fruit of your kindness. But somewhere, someone will breathe easier, stand taller, take a step forward because you reminded them they were capable. That is no small thing. In fact, it might be the greatest work of all. Because in a world that constantly tears down, you chose to build up. In a world that critiques first, you chose to honor effort. In a world that shames the struggling, you chose to sit beside them and say, "This isn't the end of your story." And if you ever wonder whether that matters, let me assure you, it does. Every gentle word, every pause to listen, every moment you held space instead of judgment, every time you said, "You've got this," when someone couldn't yet say it to themselves. It matters. You don't have to fix the whole world. Just offer someone enough belief to take one more step. That's what true leadership is. Not control, not charisma, not performance, but the steady, sacred act of helping others believe they're still worthy of the next chapter. So go be that. Go speak life into the places where hope went silent. Go leave trails of dignity everywhere you walk. And when someone says, "You changed me," smile quietly, because all you did was help them see what was already there. And that is what the best influence always does.